Hey everyone, it's Sevy. A lot of you have been asking for this comparison, which took me a while, but it's finally here. In this video, we're going to test and compare Kokomi on these 6 often recommended weapons: Everlasting Moonglow, Prototype Amber, Thrilling Tales, Hakushin Ring, Dodoco Tales, and Sacrificial Fragments. Except for the Moonglow, these are very accessible weapons for most players. Unfortunately, I don't have a Skyward Atlas on this account, so I couldn't collect footage for it, but I'll comment on it a bit later on. In my comparison, I'm going to use these 4 criteria: damage, healing, energy, and team synergy. My hope is that my analysis will be detailed enough to give you a good idea of what to invest in more for your Kokomi. Let's dive in! To set a baseline for my Kokomi build, here it is. She is at C0 with 868 talents and is holding an HP Sands, Hydro Goblet, and HP Circlet, 2-piece Tenacity, and 2-piece Heart of Depths. I know that healing-wise and damage-wise these are not her optimal pieces. Ideally, she would have a healing circlet and 2-piece Heart of Depths and Maidens. On that ideal build, her numbers and number differences will be bigger than what I've attained here. I'm still waiting to find the right healing bonus circlet to come along. However, the percent differences between the builds aren't far off, and that's what I'm more interested in. The increase would still be proportional, healing bonus, or HP circlet. I am using the same Kokomi build all throughout, so we'll have the same stats baseline anyway. Another important note, when we compare numbers, I will put them in reference to Prototype Amber, which is considered to be the staple, free-to-play craftable weapon for her. This will help me make our comparison more streamlined and so that you don't get an eye full of number columns at once. Now let's start with Prototype Amber. I won't spend too much time on Prototype Amber since I've used it in my Kokomi review video and my Moonglow video. Essentially, I think this is Kokomi's most flexible weapon. The weapon benefits her healing, her teammates' healing, and has a solid energy refund mechanic. For our baseline numbers, here is my Kokomi's damage and healing numbers. Take note that the passive healing is not included, which is hard to quantify since its percentage is based on your party members' respective HPs. So how does it compare to the closest upgrade equivalent, the Everlasting Moonglow? For my full thoughts on Everlasting Moonglow, check out my previous video where I went on a bit of a rant about this. These are the numbers in comparison to Prototype Amber. On my current build, Moonglow does 20% more damage on normals, 11% more damage on charged, and 10% more healing than Prototype Amber, not considering Prototype's extra regeneration passive. My biggest gripe is how its energy refund is a downgrade from Prototype Amber. I would definitely say save your primos unless you really want to pull for the Jade Cutter and don't mind getting a copy of this for Kokomi. Now, what about the Thrilling Tales of the Dragon Slayers? In terms of stats and damage numbers, the Thrilling Tales is not far off from Prototype Amber, with 95% of its damage and 98% of its healing. Prototype Amber still has the advantage of added healing from its own passive, of course, but the Thrilling Tales' strength lies in its ability to buff the next teammate. Since Kokomi's best comps include a stronger DPS like Xiangling, Beidou, or even Ayaka or Ganyu, Thrilling Tales is a good choice. Xiangling can even snapshot the buff when entering her Pyronado and switching back to Kokomi to take advantage of her Hydro application. This weapon, accompanied by a 4-piece Tenacity set, creates significant buffs for your team. The only downside is that Thrilling Tales doesn't offer any energy solutions for Kokomi, so running this means you either won't rely much on Kokomi's burst or you'll have a battery on the team. But it's cheap, it's almost guaranteed you can get it at R5, and it allows your team DPSs to shine. So if you were already playing during the Dodoco events, then you'll have an R5 Dodoco Tales. Out of the weapons in this video, Dodoco Tales is my least recommended. With the buffs activated, the normal attacks are around 98% of Prototype Amber's, but Dodoco's charged attacks are 20% greater. This is already considering it's at R5 and level 85 out of 90. But there are more downsides to this. Her charged attack uses a pretty big chunk of her stamina, so you won't be able to spam it. And even if it's an AoE attack with a pretty nice multiplier, I personally don't or can't use it a lot in battle. The other thing is that Dodoco doesn't offer Kokomi much more than that. No extra HP, no extra healing, so it heals 11% less than Prototype Amber, and no extra energy either. As a weapon, it only benefits Kokomi's attack stat and charged attack damage, while Kokomi's primary utility, I believe, is in her support capabilities. It outclasses all other weapons with its charged attack damage, but that's about it. I would still recommend an R1 Prototype Amber over this weapon. Next, we have the Sacrificial Fragments. A lot of people have been suggesting Kokomi on Sacrificial Fragments, so let's start with how it benefits her. The substat of Sacrificial Fragments is Elemental Mastery with 201 on level 80 out of 80. This means it can benefit Kokomi's Vape and Electrocharge damage. In terms of non-reaction damage, Sac Frag is the weakest, sitting at 90% of Prototype Amber's damage, but with reactions, of course, that EM shows significantly, giving more than double the non-reaction damage. However, unless you're fighting a Pyro Cube, Kokomi isn't always the one vaping. So when I tried using Kokomi and Xiangling in a vaporized team, half the time it's Xiangling vaporizing and half the time it's Kokomi. It's a nice damage bump to Kokomi, just know that it's not that consistent. One more minor disadvantage this has is the lack of energy refunding mechanic. Similar to Dodoco Tales, unless you have enough ER substats or a team battery, you will have a harder time getting Kokomi's burst up when fighting only a few targets. So to me, the best advantage of Sac Frag, particularly at high refinements, is that it has a chance to reset Kokomi's skill cooldown. This gives Kokomi the nice advantage of repositioning her jellyfish and giving the jellyfish 100% potential uptime without depending on her burst skill refresh. Depending on how you do run your comp, this can be very useful. It still wins in fashion points though, right behind Moonglow. Lastly, we have the Hakushin Ring in Azuma's craftable catalyst. I actually really like this weapon for her. It has a base attack higher than Prototype Amber, an ER substat, and an interesting passive. Here are its damage numbers compared to Prototype Amber, considering its buff is activated. Hakushin Ring puts Kokomi's own damage really close to Prototype Amber's at 99%, which is barely any difference thanks to the higher base attack and elemental damage bonus. At higher refinements, the damage will surpass it by a bit. But the team advantage over Prototype is that Kokomi buffs her Electro teammates' damage. It enhances Kokomi as a support as well as an on-field burst DPS. In my testing, it's very easy to guarantee a 100% uptime on the elemental damage bonus if you use her with Fischl, Beidou, Raiden, or Electro Traveler. Add Kokomi's damage and her Electro teammates' damage, and that means this is superior in damage dealing versus Prototype. The passive kind of makes it a requirement to always pair Kokomi with an Electro unit, but if you run her on an Electro Charge team, then that's not a problem. The ER percent on Hakushin Ring contributes to Kokomi's energy needs if you don't have good substats like me. Getting her burst up is a lot more manageable. Of course, just be wary that Electro Charge teams aren't as effective on single targets and bosses. It's a good weapon, but it places some restrictions. Still, it's the best choice if you run her almost exclusively on an Electro Charge team. Now what about Skyward Atlas? Well, Skyward Atlas is a powerful DPS weapon. The damage it gives Kokomi is about 13% higher than the Prototype, and factoring in that passive from the clouds, it's an even bigger damage bump. But checking its stats and passive, that's all it benefits. No extra HP, healing, or energy. Still, if it's the only catalyst you have, it's a very viable weapon for her. So to recap, let's consolidate all of the results and how much each weapon increases. It's hard to give them a direct quantitative rating since they serve different purposes and playstyles. But for a more qualitative evaluation, I can at least say that the best weapon in terms of being an all-arounder is the Prototype Amber, while the least optimal weapon in terms of damage and support utility is the Dodoco Tales. If you use Dodoco Tales on her, it's highly recommended to switch it out for a Prototype Amber as soon as possible. If you're still on the fence about pulling for Moonglow, I would personally recommend you don't. In my opinion, the best reason to get Moonglow would just be if you really love your Kokomi or you want to complete her aesthetic or for min-maxing, I guess. For the rest, I've shown you the pros and cons, so it's completely up to you which fits your account and playstyle the most. That's going to be all for this video, everyone. I hope it helped you a lot and that you now have a better idea on how Kokomi performs with these different catalysts. Let me know in the comments which catalyst you would personally put on her. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already, leave a like, and I will see you soon. Take care!